Welcome to the first episode of The Public Square, a talk show coming to you on Mmegi Online channel. Today we are discussing the Constitution. Recently, legislators had an intense debate in Parliament, debating the Constitution Amendment Bill. What is it all about? What are its implications? And the referendum, again, what is it all about? We have in the studio a guest who is going to answer all these questions. He is Martin Dingake, a lawyer based in Gaborone. Welcome to the Public Square, Dingake.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mbuya.
Dingake, you are very special because you are our first guest on the Public Square. Let's start from the beginning. What is the significance of a constitution?
The significance of a constitution, first and foremost, is that it's what in law we called a ground norm. It's the most basic, fundamental law above all laws of a country. It embodies the aspirations, the wishes, the hopes of a nation at a particular moment in time. Embodying these aspirations, as I said, future desires, hopes, to govern its processes, to govern its conduct, to govern even those future generations that are yet to be born. So, in essence, that's the Constitution.
Thank you very much. As I was preparing for this show, I obviously came across a lot of constitutions of other countries. And one thing that I noticed, which is common among all those constitutions, is that they have a preamble. The Constitution of Botswana does not have a preamble. Is there a need for one?
Well, I'm not so sure that one can rightly say that there is no preamble. I think if you look at the Botswana Constitution, it says we are a republic, a sovereign republic. I think for me, that is the preamble. We will talk about what a republic embodies and what it must be. But you would be correct to the extent that that preamble is not in the format of other constitutions. And I think for a number of reasons. This is a 1965 constitution. At the time, I think Southern Africa was under a feudalism kind of governance, including Bechuanaland Protectorate at the particular time. Of particular interest would be that the three constitutions, the three chiefs, are the ones who negotiated the constitution. I think we were breaking away from that tradition of feudalism to a republican country in which leaders are born, leaders are elected as opposed to being born.
And what is the purpose of a review of the Constitution?
Well, I think firstly, let's understand how a constitutional review comes about. It comes about from a number of bases, one of which could be through court decisions, judicial review, constitutional challenges relating to specific provisions of the law. It could be legislation initiated by the executive. It could be through a private member's bill, although Botswana is notoriously not fond of that process. It could be as a result of a commission such as the one that was set up arising mainly from electoral promises from parties that contested power and won that political power.
In your own view, would you say the country was in a constitutional review moment?
I think the idea of a constitutional review has been mooted for a long time. I think in successive cycles for electoral period, political parties in particular, the opposition, have been calling for constitutional review. I think the 2019 elections were historic in the sense that I think for the first time the ruling party came out and made commitment to undertake a comprehensive constitutional review process. So I don't think there could be any doubt that there was pressing need for the constitution to be reviewed, and to the extent that the political elites bought into this idea and spearheaded it, I think it speaks to the significance of the moment.
The last time the constitution was amended was in 2005, following the Balopi Commission, which was looking into the review of sections 77, 78, and 79 of the constitution. And now, of course, the current review. Some people like Hosi Khafela of Bakatla have argued that the current constitution actually requires a complete overhaul. Do those who say the current constitution must be replaced by a new one have a point?
There is a point in this sense. Firstly, as I've said, the Botswana constitution has been amended several times through executive interventions. The latest of which, if you remember, would have been in 2021, when the specially elected members of parliament were increased. There has been this piecemeal amendment. But of course, if you take into account significant moments that had a semblance of public participation, the 2005 would be the most, would be the one that stands out. The Botswana constitution was negotiated. I think that's a historic fact. There has not been public participation. We can debate whether there was or there wasn't, depending on your school of thought. There are those who say that participation was there to the extent that the three chiefs allowed for feedback. There was the Lobatse Constitutional Conference, in which political leaders of opposition parties walked out. So there was that platform and the amount of time that it took. But insofar as an inclusive, broad public participation is concerned, we haven't had any of that sort. I think the most troubled democracies in SADC particularly have undertaken several constitutional review processes, breaking away from that colonial heritage. Botswana, fortunately, has been comfortable with its constitution, that I think those who have been calling for that broad public participation of constitutional review exercise would have had a very valid point.
Okay, we will hold it there for now. When we come back from the break, we'll talk more about the public participation.
Have you downloaded BW News app? your one-stop shop for Botswana's leading newspapers. If not, what are you waiting for? Start reading the print editions of Botswana's leading newspapers as they appear in the newspapers on any device. The BW News app features the Midweek Sun, Botswana Guardian, Mmegi, and the Monitor, updated in an easy-to-flip-through format once the papers are printed. Our packages include current affairs, which creates seamless access for one organizational setup. You can add up to 100 users at affordable rates. After subscription, you will have access to our PDF archive from the past 1 year. You will also receive notifications on your phone as soon as the newspapers publish. You can open your favorite title and share it in text format, and also change the font size and screen light to your choosing. Too busy to flip through and read? The BW News app will read the article for you, and it can also translate from English to the language you're comfortable with. Get the BW News app from the Google Play Store and the App Store and enter a world of up-to-date news presented as it appears in the physical paper.
If you are just joining us, we are on the public square, and we have Martin Dingake, who is our guest. Dingake,
Yes.
welcome back.
Thank you so much.
The Law Society of Botswana says Parliament should have passed an act which would have guided the review process in terms of how it unfolds. Do you think they have a point there?
Well, I think that's a particularly valid point. If you look at other jurisdictions, Kenya, for example, they undertook that exercise, and they used one of our resources, Justice Unity Dow, at the time, if you recall. Lesotho, I think, had a convention. South Africa, through the CODESA negotiations, embarked on an interim constitutional review process. You remember they had what they called the sunset clauses, as they went into the new dawn to usher a new democratic dispensation. Botswana constitution is peculiar for its absence of an inbuilt mechanism, both for a constitutional review process and amendment, save for specific provisions that require a two-thirds simple majority and a referendum. That is one. Two, there has not been proper guidance in terms of, given where we are as a country, how do we inbuild that consensus and that public participation? How do we capture these aspirations? How do we reflect on them? How do we test what has been captured by the Commission, and how is that reflected in the government white paper and subsequently in the amendment itself?
That's interesting. Following on that, the civil society has faulted the entire process of the current review of the Constitution. According to them, right from the word go, starting with the appointment of the commissioners through to the drafting of the terms of reference, up to the debate in Parliament itself, throughout there was no transparency, according to civil society. What is your view on that?
I think these voices are reflective of what the people's expectations were and how that process unfolded. The terms of reference, for example, were drawn by the executive. The executive had absolute input in terms of constituting the commission. This would be in terms of the Commissions of Inquiries Act, the amount of powers that is given to the president. So he used that platform. Insofar as how that process unfolded, you would remember that there were quite a number of issues that arose which were unrelated to the Constitution. You would also recall that there were specific constitutional matters in respect of which the Commission itself rejected without making provision for reasons as to why those were rejected. If you look at, you then had deliberate intentions to trample down the judicial interventions that took place insofar as the appointment of judges is concerned. When the judiciary has been calling out for a more transparent, open, where the president literally endorses a decision of the Judicial Service Commission because it's a qualified body to make that appointment. We are seeing a reversal in terms of what the gains that have been made from judicial decisions. If you look at the debates themselves, in terms of how they went, you would recall that I think the House of Chiefs was involved quite late, and they had to sit on an urgent basis. You remember when Parliament initiated the debate, the report from the House of Chiefs was not there. It had to be requested. You then had, in the course of the debate, certain provisions of the amendment being withdrawn. Yeah, there was one thing for which one may applaud the speakership of the National Assembly, which was to allow for presentations at the General Assembly. Congo did present. I think the National Commission on Gender, there is an organization called Bakalanga for a Fair Dispensation. But what came out from that process, which was interesting, because I think Bakalanga for a Fair Dispensation were represented by a former high-ranking senior official, that their presentations before the commission were completely excluded. They were not even mentioned, and said in the entire time he has served in the public service at that level, this has never happened. So there were quite a number of concerns that came out, which did not allow for a broader participation as it were.
Thank you very much, Dingake. We'll take another break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the theme regarding public participation and move on to the next one.
Do you want to stay in touch with the up-to-the-minute breaking news countrywide, regional and international coverage, as well as in-depth analysis from Botswana's most trusted media house? Then head over to www.mmegi.bw, where you can also enjoy access to premium articles, long reads, features, and exclusive opinions. Whether you're looking for updates on politics, health, education, business and the economy, or sports, and many more, we have you covered. Sign up on the website and choose a package suitable for you. We also have packages for organizations at affordable rates. Visit www.mmegi.bw and enjoy the finest journalism and news you need to know.
If you are just joining us, we are on the public square. We have our guest, Martin Dingake, and we are discussing with him the Constitution. Dingake, thank you for staying. Going back to what you said just before we went to the last break regarding public participation, I want to quote to what the chairman of the Commission of Inquiry, retired Chief Justice Redi Butelo said when his commission submitted the report. This is what he said. He said, the report was a reflection of the opinions held by the majority of Botswana regarding the current constitution and their desires towards its improvement. In your own view, does the report, or the bill for that matter, capture the mood of the people regarding the changes that they aspire to see in the amended constitution?
I'll just make 3 points on that regard. The first is in relation to the presidential election. The second is with respect to the increase of the specially elected members of parliament. The third, and perhaps most controversial one, which I understand has been withdrawn, is with respect to the discipline, the power of parliament to discipline members of parliament, including removing them from office. In other words, you can hire, but you cede the power to fire to parliament. Neither of those came out in the report, at least in the public consultation. The last, and I think perhaps the most important point, was there was never feedback in terms of this is what we had, this is what we have, this is what we've captured. Is this a true reflection? Allowing for that final endorsement.
So what do you say to people who argue that the debate in parliament degenerated into the political class or the political elite fighting for what they want and not necessarily what the rest of the people wanted as changes in the constitution?
I think the time for debate was short. You remember at one point in time it was cut down to 2 minutes on the amendments that were made. The second point is that the debate was along political lines. I think that division was very clear for me. And thirdly, there was not any preparedness to openly and objectively engage on the content. The last one was with respect to, I think, a frequently recurring theme that came from the leader of the House, which was that a constitutional review would not embody all aspirations. So we can always come back and make these necessary changes if they are desired. But for the time being, we have not included them because we do not think it's necessary. We're not saying in future there can't be consideration for that. I think for me, against what the initial exercise had hoped to achieve, didn't suggest any level of seriousness to ensure that the process is comprehensive enough.
In your opening remarks earlier, you made reference to a referendum. What is a referendum?
A referendum is a process by which the public is given the opportunity to feedback on the final document of a constitutional review or amendment of a constitution, to say this is what your views were, this is how we've captured them. So we want your input insofar as whether those amendments, those provisions, either as made in the sense of the wording, you accept them or you do not accept them. And they have that input to say we accept the change or we do not accept the change. The most significant one would be, I think, the 1998 referendum. You remember the age of voting, the establishment of the Independent Electoral Commission, so on and so forth. So there were specific questions on which polls were taken. Yes.
And in this particular bill, which provisions are likely to go for a referendum?
The provisions that are likely to go for a referendum are the ones that deal with our democracy, the electoral process, the appointment of the IEC secretary, the one relating to the Judicial Service Commission, which is on the appointment of judges. If you look at the government white paper and how those bodies have been reconstituted, you'll realize it's a departure from the Mutumisi judgment. If you look at the citizenship issue also, remember, I think the High Court in Maung allowed for dual citizenship. You've got that right watered down in terms of whether those who hold dual citizenship could take positions, critical positions within the public service. Member of Parliament, speakership, appointment to judgeship, and I think serving on the discipline forces.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dingake. We really appreciate your having been on the public square.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for watching the public square.